it's Daniela, and first of all, did you miss us? Yes, I know it has been a long time since you've seen a video on WowzerfyingSquad, and we didn't mean to leave you in the dark like this, and I promise we did not drop off the face of the earth or the face of YouTube. I guess we took an unofficial break, and so I'm sorry, we've been MIA. Basically, there's not like a really deep reason why we've been gone. It's just been like we all have busy lives, and we're still in touch. All of us still talk a lot, and we're still friends, and like we're not fighting or anything. Nothing bad is happening behind the scenes, and we just haven't, WowzerfyingSquad just hasn't been our top priority lately. We're all busy, and we've just haven't been the greatest at posting. So that's really all it comes down to. There's nothing specific that happened behind the scenes. It's literally just we've been living our lives, but we're back, and we're excited to be back. And yeah, so hey guys, it's Daniela, and this week's theme on WowzerfyingSquad is Storytime / my experience with blank. So today, I am going to tell you guys my experience with performing in the orchestra at an opera. So that is one thing that I was busy with since in the time that we've been gone. That was one thing that was happening for me. I performed in an opera. I was in the orchestra, not like on stage. I was in the orchestra pit, and it was a really fun experience. It was really exhausting, but it was so much fun, and I loved it. And it was my first time performing in an opera, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So this is my experience with being in the orchestra pit in an opera. So the opera that we performed was Die Fledermaus by Johann Strauss. And if you've never heard it before, I suggest that you look it up, because it is such a fun opera. I swear, it's so funny and so lighthearted, and it's hilarious. And I really, really loved being a part of this opera. I think this is the most lighthearted opera that I've ever that I'm familiar with. It's very lighthearted, and it's so funny. And so if you're having a bad day, search Die Fledermaus, and the music is gonna cheer you up. It's so funny. Yeah, so basically that was the opera that we performed, and we did our rehearsals and the performances the week after spring break, which is an interesting week to have a very busy week, because we just came back from spring break, and then we got into this really intense week. Yeah, so opera week was so much fun, and it was so exhausting. So first of all, I currently have a stress fracture from opera week. Yeah, on my foot. Basically, it just came from walking so much to the Performing Arts Center from my apartment, because my apartment is a bit of a far walk from the Performing Arts Center. And so I slightly fractured my foot from that. I actually just now came back from the health center, and that's when I found out I had a stress fracture, because it's been hurting me for several weeks now, and it started during the week of the opera. and so, and like it hasn't gotten better. So I went to the health center today and I found out I have a stress fracture. So I'm gonna have to wear a boot for the next 3 weeks. I'm not wearing it now because I'm not like on my feet now. I only have to wear it when I'm like on my feet. But yeah, so that's one thing that came out of opera week. And my foot has been annoying me. But it's not like a terrible injury. It's a very minor fracture. I don't have to go on crutches or anything. I just have to wear a boot. So yeah. But yeah, that was one thing. That was one thing that came out of it. That's the thing that is still bothering me, and it's been a few weeks since then. So now, with that out of the way, let's talk about like the actual opera. So we put this together in a very short time, and we had spring break in the middle of all this. So the fact that we like managed to put all of that together, like it was pretty amazing. Like I remember like when we started reading the music like of the week before spring break. So we were not even working on this for a long time. And so the week before spring break, when we like were learning all the music and stuff, this was before we put this with like the singers and stuff. This was just like during our regular orchestra time. And it was just like us, like the orchestra, like working on the music. And I mean, like the singers, of course, like they were working on like their stuff, but like we were separate. We hadn't like rehearsed it together yet. It was just, we were just rehearsing it with the orchestra. And I'm telling this from the orchestra perspective because that's what I was in. So the music it's so much fun, but it was a lot of music. And I remember like when I first looked at it, it's like 50 something pages of music. And I was like, this is a lot of music. Like I was wondering like, how are we gonna like put this together? But we managed to do it. And I had my section, we had a sectional. I was in the first violin section, and we had a sectional where we were reading the music basically and going over spots that we needed to work on. And it was very, very hard, but we worked on it a lot and pulled through, and it turned out really good. But it was a lot of music, and it was overwhelming at first. So at the end of the week, this was like the last day before spring break. We had our first rehearsal with the singers, and I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of opera terminology. We had what was called a sitzprobe, and if you don't know what sitzprobe is, it's a rehearsal. So it's an opera term for basically the first rehearsal with the orchestra and the singers. And basically the point of this rehearsal is it's not like a dress rehearsal or anything. It's just like to get the singers used to performing with the orchestra and vice versa. It's to get everyone used to like playing with each other and pretty much like that, and like basically put everyone together. And so pretty much we went through pretty much the entire opera, but not in order. So it was kind of like in a so like we started with it was like not in any particular order. We just kind of went, but we did eventually get through the entire opera, I think, or almost the entire opera. I can't remember, but yeah. So if you don't know how opera music works, each like I guess part of it is numbered. So there's like at least for this opera, this is the only opera I've ever performed in. So there was the overture. And then there's the introduction, which is number 1, and then there's number 2, and so on and so forth. And so basically each aria and each song, I guess, in the opera, like is like so there's like number 1, number 2, number 3, and so that's how it's like divided. So it's not like one long piece. It's like multiple pieces. I guess it's hard to explain. but they're each numbered, basically. So it's like you start with number 13, for example, and that's like, for example, that could be in like Act 2, like some aria in Act 2 or something. I don't know. It's just an example. So that's how everything is divided. So obviously, when you go in order, you start with number 1, number 2, like you get the point. So it's like we started with number like 14 or something. I can't remember, but we just kind of went out of order in the sitz probe, and just the point of it was not to get through the opera. It was just to put everyone together and kind of, you know, just I guess put everyone together. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, you get the point. So that was the sitz probe, and that was on the last day before spring break, and that was an evening rehearsal. So our spring break didn't actually really start until after that rehearsal was over. So that rehearsal went from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. We had like 4-hour-long rehearsals, and they were really long and exhausting. No, actually this one was 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. The rest of them were 6 to 10. This went from 2 to 6. So our spring break didn't start until 6 p.m. And so once that rehearsal was over, we were officially on spring break. Yay. I didn't go home for spring break until the next day. Normally I would have just gone home that day, but since I had rehearsal in the evening, my parents didn't pick me up until the next day. That's what we agreed on, so that I could, you know, have some time to rest after rehearsal and not have to scramble to get packed to go home and all that, you know. So yeah. And then the last day of spring break, the day before classes started again, was our first dress rehearsal. So basically we started spring break late, and then we had to go back from spring break early. So I had to go back on the last day of spring break, like pretty early. Normally I would have been dropped back off at my apartment like after dinner, but I had rehearsal starting at 6. So my parents dropped me off like in the afternoon, and so then I had time to kind of get ready, and we did have to wear our concert black for the dress rehearsal, so not just the performances, but for the dress rehearsals as well. So basically I had time to like get changed and just kind of get ready and all that, and then we had our dress rehearsal. So yeah, so I had to walk from my apartment to the Performing Arts Center, and I don't have a car, so I had to walk. And it's walking distance. It's walkable. It's just a bit of a far walk. Because the Performing Arts Center is on a different part of campus than like where most of my classes are. So yeah, it is walkable, but it just takes a little while. So yeah, I had to walk there every day for like a week, and I did burn a lot of calories, but I got a stress fracture from it, which is not fun, but it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah. So yeah, I went to rehearsal that night, and pretty much in our dress rehearsals, we went through the entire opera. So basically the rehearsals were 4 hours long. The opera is not 4 hours. The opera is like 2 hours or 2.5 hours. But basically for the first like hour or 50 minutes of the rehearsal, we worked on like spots that needed work, and it was more of like, it wasn't so much going through it. It was like working on spots and like just, and it was like a normal rehearsal as opposed to a dress rehearsal. And then we had like a break, and then at 7:30 that's when we started running through the show. And then we would like take another break when it was intermission, and so we would be done by like 10. And so it was really fun. We ran through it like a lot, because we had to run through it once a day for a week. So it definitely got repetitive after that, but that's kind of comes with the territory when you're performing and you're doing multiple performances plus dress rehearsals. It gets really repetitive because you're rehearsing it so many times. So from the orchestra pit, I couldn't actually see what was going on stage, but I could hear what was going on stage. So basically, like when we were playing, we were kind of sitting there and like listening to the opera. Basically, this opera in particular is not 100% music. I know some operas are just all music, and like it's music like the entire time and no like spoken dialogue. I know the Marriage of Figaro, another opera, which I saw that one before. I haven't performed that one, but I've seen that one. That opera is all music, so there's no spoken dialogue. This opera, Die Fledermaus, there is spoken dialogue, so it's pretty much like a musical, but the music sounds like opera music. So it is an opera. It's still an opera, but there is spoken dialogue. So think of it like a musical. So yeah, but instead of like showy musical music like you would normally hear in the music is opera, basically. So yeah, that's basically what this opera is. So we were not playing the whole time. There were so like in between like all the numbered pieces, there was dialogue. So that's kind of how it worked. Also, they rewrote this opera, so it takes place. So like I guess it was an adaptation, because like I could tell it was rewritten, so it would take place in present day. Because like there were references to pop culture that I know for a fact definitely did not exist in Strauss's time. There was a reference to social media, and also there's a character named Adele in the opera, and there's a singer named Adele as well. So there was references to some of Adele's songs, like the singer. So I thought it was funny, like how they made an adaptation of it. So it wasn't the original opera; it was like an adaptation of it. So yeah, and it was, the adaptation was set in present day, because there was things like there was things like social media and stuff, and there's also a character named Bruno, and there was a reference to We Don't Talk About Bruno, which is from a movie that literally came out in the last year or so. So yeah, it was rewritten, but I thought all the references were funny, and the audience, I could tell like the audience enjoyed that as well, because there were laughs from the audience. It's just a really funny opera. I loved it. So yeah. So when we were not playing, we were just listening to what was going on the stage, and like there were certain times where like there were like funny moments that came up, and like sometimes like there'd be some people like in the orchestra pit that would like lip sync, like when there was a memorable line. Like we would like lip sync it or something, and so it was funny. It was very entertaining. So yeah, we had our dress rehearsals, and then in between the last dress rehearsal and the first performance, we had what was called Dark Night, which is another opera / musical theater term. Now I'm not a theater person. I enjoy musicals, but I'm not very experienced in like theater terms, so I'm not really familiar with all these terms. I just know these terms because I was in this opera. But basically a dark night is where I think it's specifically like a Broadway term, because I did some Googling on this. And a dark night is basically where there's no rehearsals or performances on a particular night. And they call it dark night. It sounds really ominous and really it sounds ominous. It's not really. It literally just means a particular night where there's no performances or rehearsals going on in a particular theater. So it's dark. So that's the term for it. So we had a dark night, and that was just kind of like a chance for us to take a break and get some rest, and because it was a really intense week, and so it was nice to get like a night off from all this opera stuff, especially before the performances, because this was the day before performances started. This was the night before opening night, so it was really good for us to get a break and get and just get some rest before opening night. So yeah, then opening night happened, and we kind of followed a similar schedule to our rehearsals. So we had the performances. 3 of the performances were started at 7:30. The last performance was a matinee, so that one started at 2 p.m. So the 3 evening performances, we followed a similar schedule to the rehearsals. So during the rehearsals, we started our show run through at 7:30, and so the performances were pretty much the same thing. The only difference was we didn't have to be there at 6. I think the first night, on opening night, call time was 6:45, and we spent like 15 minutes just checking a few spots, and then like we took a break, and then it was the start of the show, and then the rest of the nights we didn't like have any spot checks or anything before. Like call time was 7 o'clock, and we just that was like the time that we usually took our break during our rehearsals. So like that would be our call time, and it was just like a half hour before the show started, and that was just when we had to be there and like, you know, get prepared and, you know, be there, because that's what a call time is. Call time, if you don't know, a call time isn't necessarily the time that the show starts. It's just the time that the performers need to be there, because you have to be there with enough time. You know, you can't show up at the time it starts. You know what I mean? So yeah. So it was a similar schedule, and then the matinee was also a similar schedule, just with different times, basically, because it was an afternoon performance. So yeah. Also, we had snacks. There were like, we had snacks during our breaks, so that was nice to get some get some nutrition. I'm kidding, because they weren't the healthiest snacks, but you know, it is nice to you know, get some food, especially like the fact that these rehearsals and performances were during prime dinner time. So it's like it's like we would either have to eat dinner like before or after. I'm a late dinner eater, so like I would just eat like when I got back, because I'm not gonna eat at 5 o'clock p.m. That's too early for me. So I would just eat dinner when I got back at like 10 p.m. But yeah, they had snacks, so that was nice, especially because like we were at rehearsal during normal dinner time, so yeah. So there were things like Reese's peanut butter cups and goldfish and Rice Krispie treats and stuff. Not really the healthiest stuff, but yeah, it's definitely good to get a little bit of food in your system, especially because we needed to have energy to keep playing and stuff until 10 p.m. So yeah, So speaking of dinner time, the way I handled dinner time, because I knew these were going to be long nights, so I started using HelloFresh a few months ago. This is not sponsored, by the way. I know HelloFresh sponsors everyone. I wish I was sponsored by HelloFresh, but this is not sponsored. But I've been using HelloFresh for the last few months, and it's been amazing for me. And I love it. And so I cook every night. And during opera week, I ended up cooking dinner like earlier in the day, like in the afternoon. And so that I wouldn't have to be cooking at 10 p.m. because I wanted to get back and like have my dinner already ready because it was late. But like normally like I cook like at dinner time and then I eat. Like I don't cook ahead of time. But this time like I had to do that. And also normally we have orchestra at 2 p.m. 2 to 3:50. That's like our normal like orchestra rehearsal time. But during this opera week we did not meet during orchestra time because we already had rehearsals in the evening, which were 4 hours long, and it would be ridiculous to also have a nearly 2 hour long orchestra rehearsal, like, plus another long rehearsal, like, later in the day. That would just be ridiculous. So yeah, we didn't meet during our normal time. So I had that time open, so I had time to cook my dinner for later, and then I would just put it in the fridge. And then reheat it later and eat it. And that's how I handled dinner time during this crazy week. So yeah. Overall, opera week was so much fun, and I was so sad when it was over. I was honestly dreading the time that it was over because this was so fun. I loved it. I loved performing in this opera. And I remember during after the last performance, the matinee, I felt a little bit conflicted on how to feel because like part of me was still revved up from the opera because it's a really exciting opera. So like it really gets you like revved up. But also part of me was like sad that it was over. So I was just like, it was really weird. Like I was conflicted on how to feel. But yeah, it was really fun, and I really hope to do it again next year. So yeah, so this opera, it was associated with the School of Music, because I am a music major, so this was a school thing, and so they have an opera every year. This was my first time doing it. I did not do it last year. And the reason I didn't do it last year was because not everyone in orchestra performs in the opera orchestra every year. Because the orchestra pit is, it only has so much room. So they can't fit everyone in orchestra in the pit at a time. So so basically they have to reduce the orchestra. And so basically it's a smaller orchestra. So I'm not sure like how exactly they pick who gets to be in it. I don't know if there's like an exact an exact way that they choose. I think what they do is just like try to give everyone at least one chance to do it like before they graduate. So like since I didn't do it last year, I did it this year, and so I think they just try to give everyone a chance at some point, but not everyone does it every year. So I hope to do it again next year, because that would be really cool. Yeah. So that was my experience with being in the orchestra pit of an opera. It was so much fun, and I seriously recommend you guys go and search Die Fledermaus, because it's amazing. And even if you like don't watch the whole thing, like you can literally like watch or like listen to like any part of it, and like it's all like all of it is exciting. So even if you just like listen to like one aria or something, like you don't have to watch the whole opera to be like revved up, and like it's the whole show is just amazing. So I seriously recommend you guys listen to the music of it because it's amazing. And I'm sure even if you guys are not musicians, I'm sure you've probably heard the overture before. It's one of those pieces that I'm sure everyone has heard before because it's just so well known and famous. So if you search the overture, I'm sure it'll probably ring a bell or two. So yeah. Oh, also the overture, speaking of the overture, we did play the overture last semester in orchestra. We played it in one of our concerts. And so it was really cool to get to play it again. And the first time we rehearsed it, like for the opera, like we could tell like it was still kind of in our fingers. It was a little rusty because it had been some time since we had performed it, but it was still kind of in our fingers. So like that was cool. But yeah, we performed it last semester, and it was kind of cool to like get a little taste of it before performing the entire opera. So yeah, but yeah, that was my experience, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And yeah, so anyways, that is pretty much it. Don't forget to have a wowzerfying day filled with lots of wowzerness, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace out, y'all. Woo!